everybody! Welcome to today's show. My name is Guy, just in case you didn't know. And we've got a new time slot. That's today. Why the new time slot? Well, I was so spoilt when I went and stayed in the USA for 2 months because the Friday night show was on Friday night in the US. When you bring it here to Tokyo, where I live, the Friday night show becomes a Saturday mid-morning show. And I hate to say it, I just got greedy. I liked having a Saturday to do what I wanted to do and prep for my Saltmarsh game. So I kind of got used to it. So I said, well, let's move it. Let's move it to Tuesday or Monday. Anyway, Monday for you guys, so that you've got something to look forward to for the rest of the week. We've got fire up those little grey cells, get the creative juices flowing, give you some inspiration for your game that might happen throughout the week or on the impending weekend. I always like Mondays. I know it sounds strange, but it really gets you going and gets you moving forward. So anyway, we all need a little bit of a pickup, I think, on Mondays as well. So there we are. Yes, the USA was absolutely amazing. It really, really was. And I think I could quite easily live there, although I would have to try and find something that contains less salt and / sugar, as that would be my only gripe. That really would be my only gripe. Was like, there was just so much sugar, it was crazy. I got everything that I liked, especially chocolate milk, which was oddly enough cheaper than regular milk until I realised it contained potato rather than anything else. So that's okay. That's okay. But it's all good. It's all good. I thoroughly enjoyed the USA, but I'm really happy to be back home as well. There's nothing quite like sleeping in your own bed. GeoBear, thank you for that. How do we do the heart thing? That silly heart thing. Mate, there's got to be a better way. I'll just rip my chest open and say thank you for that. John Smith as well, thank you. I have to check if those result in people asking questions, because Restream does not show me that. Oh, wow. TK, thank you very much. It's crazy. Crazy. I really do appreciate that. Whoa, what's going on? Is it Christmas? Jean Valero, Many Ways 2017. Thank you for that. Why no new super chats? What's that's nonsense. Alucard, merci, thank you very much. Thank you, £10. Well, that's brilliant. What's going on, chaps? Jonathan Thompson. Wow, okay. Gosh. Right. So, the DM tent. Okay, all right. Well, Mondays are a brilliant day. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Just wonderful. Super chats. What? Okay, I'm just going to go quiet now. I don't know what to say. There's so many things coming through, but it's not reflecting here on YouTube. I can't. No new super chats or members yet. That's nonsense. I wish I could share my screen. Oh, hang on a moment. Is it? No, it's not, because that's died. Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. Now they're starting to come through. Okay, great stuff. Wow. Okay. Hang on. I've got to go back and see these other things, because they're not reflecting. How do I get them to reflect? The first one that's come through, quite literally the first one that's come through, is Overlord Frost. Any advice for a new player going to Dungeons & Dragons session for the first time at his first game at a store? Oh, right, okay, hang on. That flood of stuff was just insane and crazy. All right, so let's backtrack a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna have some. Right, okay, so here we go. Overlord Frost, you are heading to your first game, which is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I think that the most important thing is, if you don't know the rules, be open and honest about it, but listen and focus as well. And I would say, critically, if you can get to that gaming store beforehand, look at the dice and learn the dice, so that when they say roll a d20 or roll a d12 or roll a d8 or roll a d4, you know what those are. If you already know what those are, that's brilliant. Just bearing in mind, for Dungeons & Dragons, the principal die that you will be rolling all the time is a 20-sided die. You won't roll any other dice unless you have done something spectacular, or you're taking damage, or you're dealing damage. So don't worry about the rest of them, it's just your d20. Do not be afraid to ask. Ask the questions at appropriate times, though. If the GM is busy explaining something, don't suddenly jump in and say, "Oh, I've got a question." Let them finish. Let them get there. Let them do their thing first. Then ask them that question. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on. It's like this weird time delay thing happening here. I could share my screen with you to show you that I'm not gone completely bonkers. It is definitely definitely YouTube that's on the sly here. I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to show you. Here, have a look at that. See, it's just saying one thing so far from Overlord, and then there's questions coming through, but there's nothing here. So all those other donations that came through, if you were asking questions, please ask them again, because they're not popping up. I don't know why. I honestly don't know why. Okay, so let's get on with it. So we've got some cool stuff to go through today. Now, there's some interesting things that are happening. One of the things that we thought about and that we did last week, but it was a test. It really was very, very rough. Where we were talking about Dungeons and Lasers, which, by the way, the Kickstarter for Dungeons and Lasers, and I'm only mentioning this because I do believe that it's a good product, is nearly over, or is over. Let me just double check on that. So what we're going to be doing slightly differently from normal. So this is the new format that we've kind of been thinking of. I'm just going to bring this up quickly. What we've been thinking of is we're going to be showcasing products. We're going to be talking about stuff that gets sent through to us, because we get stuff all the time, and we usually say, well, look, we actually can't talk about this because it's not appropriate, or it doesn't really fit with the channel, and those sort of things. So usually we don't, but we suddenly thought, well, we can do it here, and so that's what we did last week with the painting of the dungeon bit. So I'm just going to share this with you so you can have a look here. This is the Dungeons and Lasers. As you can see, I mean, it's insane. They're close to 40,000. Well, they wanted 40,000. They're close to 400,000. So that's brilliant, and I think that's also because of the little cute little puppy dogs that you get. So if you want modular terrain and you want all of this stuff, this is what's been unlocked. I think everything has been unlocked. I don't think there's anything left to unlock. I think it's done. But if you like super cool terrain, go and check out last week's live video, or check out the Kickstarter, because it's phenomenal. Now, something that did come through, as we are in the last hours, you can see here, we've got 15 hours to go. So if you like solid plastic terrain, you like to build stuff up, this will work for you. Interesting enough, I don't know what's got wrong with my throat. Another company got hold of me recently, and they said, okay, well, we don't do three-dimensional terrain. We do flat terrain. Would you have a look at the product? So I said, yes, all right, well, send me along the product and I'll have a look at it, and we'll go from there. And of course, we have, most YouTubers have got this. We've got a package deal where if you want us to promote a Kickstarter for you, you pay a certain fee that each YouTuber charges. And they vary depending on how many people watch the videos and that sort of thing. If one does that. Now, we will only accept something to talk about, like, for example, Dungeons and Lasers, if we will use the product ourselves. So if I had a big enough home in Japan, I would love to use Dungeons and Lasers. I absolutely adore it. And the fact that they do sci-fi and fantasy, I think is brilliant. So this other company sent their stuff through, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. And you're going to see a lot more from that particular company, though, because I reached out to them. I'm a very... I would have to say I must be a little bit of a difficult YouTuber to work with, because, people send me these things and I say, oh, it's very nice, but I want to be involved. I want to be involved. And the reason why I want to be involved is because it's so exciting. It's so much fun. It's like, well, that's awesome. So we're going to be talking about that in a little bit. We're going to do some questions for now. We're going to go for questions until, I would say, 20 past the hour. So let's do that. When you are going to ask a question, please put the word question in caps lock up front. You see, because there's so many that just come through. So just put the word question in caps in front and then ask your question. And if I miss it, ask it again. All right? Ask it again, because I've got all my screen set up here. I'm actually going to try and get this cable out of the way because it's blocking my view. A little bit more than anything else is blocking my view. All right. Sorry, I've got this thing in my throat. I don't understand. Anyway. Right. Here we go. Next question that I saw was from Let's Go Ride Pandas. Let's Go Ride Pandas says, I'm a first-time GM. Yay, we need more GMs. And my party just encountered a wereball. 2 of the members contracted lycanthropy. They both want to accept the curse and try to learn to control it. I have some cool ideas on this, but I would like your opinion on how to approach this. Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Well, I think lycanthropy is a lot of fun. Having the characters go through this process, I think for me, the critical question that you need to answer, and this is your personal decision, is when the characters transform, do you take control over them, or do they take control over them? Now, what I would suggest, this is purely a suggestion, is the first time that they transform, have them make a wisdom saving throw. But have them make the wisdom saving throw at a fairly difficult number. Let's say a 20 or 18. Something high up, which is unlikely that they will succeed. Have them black out. And the rest of the party can either be sleeping or can see these 2 go feral and disappear off into the night. They need to see that there's consequences to this lycanthropy and that there's a reason why it's called a curse and not just an anamorphic virus, for example. Anthropomorphic virus, I should say. I would do that. If they are genuinely interested in learning and they seek out others that they can try and control this stuff, I would then, every time they do something role-playing wise, I would lower the DC down. I would say, all right, well, now it's on your DC of 17 wisdom saving throw when you transform to be able to maintain your own inner mind. And I would do it that way. And every time that they fail and they go and kill something, and I would roll for that, by the way. I wouldn't just say, oh, you go mad and you go and kill a villager. I would say, right, you become animalistic, roll a die, you choose which one, 1d12, 1d8, depending on how difficult you want it to be. And I would also do it depending on how populated the area is that they're in. Because a werewolf, if they can't find humans, they're going to go and hunt animals, they'll hunt deer and the like. And I don't think that that is too much of a spirit breaking thing. So I would then say, right, roll a d4 if they're in town, roll a d20 if they're in the forest, and on the roll of a 1 they kill a human or a sentient being, and that increases the difficulty again because then they get the taste for sentient blood. So that's something that I would look at. I would play it along those lines. I don't know what the book says, just by the way. Honourable 596 says, say you have a player who wants to build a character entirely around an ability or a spell, like a fighter who can spam teleport. Would you allow this, and how would you do so? Well, it's a tricky build. Simply because the character becomes a one-trick pony. And generally speaking, one-trick ponies break the game, not because of any other reason than the power, when it gets hyper-focused upon, usually becomes ridiculous. So a fighter who can teleport all the time becomes almost impossible to catch, impossible to trap, impossible to kill in terms of falling, in terms of all those kinds of things. So it does put a huge burden on you as the game master to then try and bring balance to that entire situation, because the rest of the party don't have that. They will be less focused and as a result weaker. Generally speaking, I would always gauge it based on the player. If the player is someone that you trust and has had a lot of experience as a role player and is also someone who is competent, then go for it. But I wouldn't do anything. I would always speak to the player first and say, there are consequences. Be aware of those consequences. So that's what I would look at. Definitely what I would look at. All right. We said we're going to go until 20 past. It's nearly 20 past now. But let's take one more question. Magic Koopa Magic 16156 says, how does an awakened cat as a character sound like? Well, an awakened cat as a character, there are the feline race, the Tabaxi, called the Cathar in my personal campaign, but yes, they're certainly... you don't have opposable thumbs, so carrying things becomes a problem. And as much as we like to see, little creatures holding daggers and blades and things in their mouths, it's a bit of a problem. You don't have the dexterity. Remember, your paws are... You're not going to be using spells. So as much as we might look at an awakened cat and go, oh, it's a talking familiar, you could play that character, but effectively what you're doing is you're choosing a character who will not be able to necessarily interact with their world very easily. If you want to play a cat character, why not play a tabaxi? They do have fingers. They are capable of interacting with their world without the penalties that you're going to have of a talking cat or a dog or any animal for that matter. So I would think about that very carefully, just from that perspective, before you make a decision. Of course, it's going to be a lot of fun if you want to play a support character, a mentor character. If you sit with your GM and say, okay, well, if the spell requires it to be semantic, it's not about wiggling fingers. It's about me pushing something off a shelf. So cats, that's probably how cats cast spells, as they bat at stuff and they push stuff off. So there's something along those lines perhaps you can look at, speak to the GM about that. Jean Pablo Munoz says, when your players go in a completely unexpected direction and you haven't prepared for a session, what is the best way to handle it? Well, Jean, whatever you planned for them to do, move it to the direction that the characters are going in. I know that's not necessarily what you meant, but if the players decide that their characters are not going to go exploring, they're going to sit in the library all day, and the session that you'd planned was a crypt crawl, could the crypt not be underneath the library? Could it not be a link there, so then you're going to hook them in by having the librarian say, oh, the book you wanted, yes, it's in the basement. Not often people ask for books on peeling bananas, but there is one. I'll give you the key. I'm not going down there. It's horribly wet and moist. I don't like it. So you could lead them down there. That's what I try and do, is if they're going in whatever direction they want to go, and I will adapt what I have planned to bring it to them, to try and basically to try and make sure that the plan is still there, but it's them who've decided on which way to go. So that's certainly one thing to do, one thing to think about. Okay. Emily Franklin, I've been a GM for a few years, and that's a good thing. At the start, it was very fun, but at some point, role-playing starting to feel more like work than fun. How do I find the fun in role-playing and GMing again? Emily, you are not alone. I went through phases where I was running games and having an absolute blast, and then after a while I went, you know what, board games is less work, and I don't have to stress, and it was to a large degree the players. And it's not their fault, it's just that it was the same folk over and over again, and the stories had become a bit humdrum, and the system was the same system over again, and they would resolve things in the same way, so there wasn't that spark of life. And for me, I usually just take a break. I say, alright, I'm not going to be running anything for 6 months. And then I wait, and after about 3 months, the bug goes, well, you could run a game with that as a setting. That's a pretty cool setting. You probably should run a game like that. So definitely something to look at. Definitely something to look at. Just take a break. Just take an absolute break. You're not going to forget what you've been doing. You might forget the campaign and all the NPC names and all that kind of stuff, but you won't forget how to run games. So sometimes it is just about taking a break. Sometimes it's about finding different players. Sometimes it's going to go and play in someone else's campaign, so you get so frustrated. You're like, you are such a bad GM. I'm going to go and run my own game again, because I realize that it's fun to do. And as you say, if it sounds like it's a lot of work, then I think you're doing it incorrectly as well. I am all about GMs doing work in terms of thinking about what their plan should be, and that's it. Don't go any further than that necessarily. If it's work, if it's feeling laborious, stop doing it. Your players are not going to be doing it, and if they complain, invite one of them to become a GM and let them GM for a little bit and get your mojo back. That's definitely something that I would suggest that you can do. There are still questions coming through, so you know what? I'm going to take them. Let's just do this. John Ryan Phillip says, my character was My character has recently discovered his sword can steal souls, and it is immensely evil. My character is a good guy, has almost succumbed to the dark once before. How would one make this interesting? I would make it your character's mission to destroy this blade. If that's the case, if your character has been tempted before, I would make them try to destroy this blade, and I would make them almost purposefully not use it, and then have to use it. And watch as that struggle starts to take place, where they start to use the weapon. It's obviously doing lots of damage, it's going to be very powerful, but I would make their ultimate goal to destroy the weapon. That's what I would do. Just annihilate it, make it the quest, speak to the GM and say, look, this is what I want my player, this is what I want my character to do. I feel it's necessary, I feel it's important, let me do this. That's really what I would do. That's the short answer. Next, TS Elite, I'm not sure, says, in the game I'm running, my players are obsessed with taming or seducing everyone and everything they encounter. Should I roll with this? If so, how should I balance the tames? I have had players who have had a very high charisma, or a persuasion, or a seduction, or whatever skill it might be, and they have tried the same thing. Now, there is something very important to bear in mind. We live in a world, a real world, where even the most beguiling, beautiful, seductive creature on the planet could walk up to you, flash you the most perfect smile, gently caress your cheek in the most perfect way. They could do everything correctly, and perhaps in our inner core we might be going, oh, I just want to help this person. But then reality comes back and goes, well, yes, but you have a significant other that you deeply and passionately love, and this might only be fleeting. So when they try to tame everybody, and that could be with bribery, I would default back and say, okay, well, yes, they have been very convincing towards this character. They have been really, really, really persuasive. The character might help them, but when they ask the character, hey, join our party and help us take over the world, I'd like to, but it's not for me. I'm not an adventurer, really. I like to stay at home. I've got a job, I've got business, I've got family. So make sure that you ground their answers in reality. Just because the role is a success doesn't mean that the players get to have it their own way. It just means that they succeed in seducing the character. You can be seduced and not follow through on it. It's called free will. And that should be something that everyone thinks very carefully about. So bear that in mind. John Perry, thank you so much for that. And I see it has finally popped up on the board. I really like your videos. Can you do a video on World Anvil where you go through the steps on how to use the GM side in the game and how to send secrets and information to players but not the whole party? That's a great suggestion. I will raise it with World Anvil when they get back. They're currently on holiday, a very well-deserved holiday as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, I will pass that on to them, doing the GM side of things. Did you watch last week's video? Last week's video we were speaking about the new category section that allows you to move stuff around on the fly, and those quick track buttons. Very useful, I find anyway, in terms of finding and running your game live. But yes, we can certainly look at that without a doubt. Don't know what's happening in terms of things. It's weird. Things are coming through twice and not coming through. Anyway, it is what it is, and I'm not going to be fazed by it. All right, hold your questions for now, please. Hold your questions for now. Just a reminder to put the word question in caps in front of your question before you ask it, so that it pops up on my screen. You see how nice and easy it is to see questions popping through. So just hold your questions for the next few minutes or so, because I want to talk about a new product. Now, again, yes, last week we were looking at the 3D terrain of Dungeons and Lasers. Beautiful terrain. We painted it out very quickly to sort of get a feel for how the whole thing worked. That's one way of building dungeons. And of course it's a very tactile, a very real way. And one of the major benefits of it was that you could actually walk down the corridor. You could look down the corridor and see all these kind of cool things. But for someone like myself, you go, well, I don't have a magnificent gaming room. I don't have a tremendously large amount of space in my apartment to do all of this kind of stuff. So that's not going to work for me. Now, of course, my default map maker is Dungeon Fog. I will always go to Dungeon Fog because I play my games online. So I need to be able to make maps on my computer and share them with whoever is playing with me in that particular game. But when I do have games around the table, that's when it is quite fun to either roll out the old chessics and start drawing as you go along. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's very old school D&D, or even just a piece of paper. Again, it works really, really, really well. But there's still that one little thing that is lacking, I think anyway, and that is visual stimulus. We're a very visual bunch of beings. We really, really, really like that. So I got sent this thing, and it was one of those relationships where it started out with them saying, "Oh, would you please review this?" And I went, "All right, well, you know, here are the fees and that sort of thing. I will review it and then decide if we'll do the review on it." So they have to agree to the fee. They don't pay the fee. They send me whatever it is. Then I will look at it. Then I agree or disagree. If I disagree, I say, okay, thanks. Can I return the product to you because it's not going to work for me? Or, okay, this is our rate. Anyway, so that had all happened behind the scenes last week. Then this package arrived for me. This big package arrived. This really, really big package arrived. And it was this stuff. And I went, interesting. I opened it up and I went, holy moly, okay, there's a lot of stuff going on here. So I wrote back to them and I said, I like your product. I like your product so much that I want to work with you. I want to work with you. I don't want to just promote your product. I want to work with you. I want to have a good relationship with you because I really, really like what you're doing. So I will show you now what we're doing. There's a whole bunch of collaboration stuff that will be coming up. Hopefully, fingers crossed. It is going into Kickstarter tomorrow, 27th. Your 27th. I'm already in the 27th. It goes live. 28th, 27th, 27th. The 27th US time. So in a couple hours it goes live. Have a look at it. All right. Now, this is it. When I say big, I mean big, as in this is Star Destroyer opening. I'm going to start lifting. Oh god, that was terrible. Look! For scale. This is huge. This is the box. Future World Creator. Future World Creator. It is massive. Massive. And I mean it's like a gigantic pizza box or something. I don't know. Anyway, beautiful, beautiful box, and it arrived, and so I opened it up. Now, what was inside was a lot more than what's currently left, because I had to remind myself that I wanted to show you this stuff. So inside was this. Hundreds and hundreds of boards. Nice, thick boards with tiles on them. Okay. So you look at that, and now, and I mean, it's keying out because obviously there's green screen going on. But you look at that and you go, okay, I like boards. I like popping stuff out, but I hate popping stuff out when it tears the paper off of it. So I'm going to show you what they've done. Very, very smart. This way. That wasn't as dramatic as I was hoping for. This. They have deep cut these. John Perry, that's amazing. Thank you. I can literally just pop them out. This is not one of those horrid instances where you are struggling. I'm not even using the right fingers here. You're just popping them out. They're so easy to pop out. And I know that sounds weird, but it's like, no, that's actually a good thing. So I'm going to pop out some more of those. All right, we're going to leave that now. So that's the characters, that's the figures. We're going to break this down a little bit more. I'm going to be a bit indulgent on this one. This is a blank piece that comes with it, and I'm going to show you now, because again, it's cardboard, and because it's cardboard, you go, well, how robust is it? It's pretty. Now I want to show you something very specific here. All right, now this you cannot stop from happening. This crease, because I bent it in half, flattened it in half, but I can restore it pretty much to its original shape. So it's pretty robust. It does tear if I tear it, but again, that's because it's made out of cardboard. But it's not bad. It's not bad in terms of if I hadn't torn it, if I hadn't bent it first, it does take a little bit more. So, you know, it's awfully satisfying. Anyway, right, so the buildings, also I will show you here, the buildings pop out just as easily. They're just bigger. All right, so this is a standard plate size, right? So I think that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. I actually didn't see that one. We're going to talk about these in a little bit, about putting it all together, because they've got some really cool ideas. So they've done this before. This is not their first rodeo. They did a fantasy one first, and there's a very small part of me which went, oh, I wish they got hold of me for the fantasy one, because I really like the system that they've got. And their thinking is pretty sharp. So anyway, that's what we're going to be talking about in the rest of today's show. We'll be doing your questions, so don't worry. We'll be doing your questions. And if you have questions about this, let me know. Now, GameStart Edizioni, they're an Italian-based company, two friends who do this. They started this because they like this whole idea of building this terrain and doing that sort of thing. Now, they have sent this to several other people, one person being John Gilmore in particular. And John Gilmore, he was the creator and the mastermind behind the Dead of Winter series, Dinosaur Island and Wasteland and those kinds of things. And he's decided he wants to build a roguelike type of game around these tiles. And I'm going to show you some more of that in a little bit, because there are so many of them. They really are beautiful. So he got involved on that, and I'm like, now I want to get involved. So I proposed to them some stuff, and tentatively they've said yes. So watch this space, you will be seeing more. Let's pop over to their website, because, and this is pretty cool, I think. Now, this is their website. Here it is there. This is a plastic figurine. If you back the Kickstarter, by the way, within the first 48 hours, you get this plastic figurine as part of your delivery. So there we go. Back the first 48 hours, and you get this wonderful little thing. So this is them. Really cool, very simple kind of stuff. Their Kickstarter is about to launch. Like I said, they've already done one for fantasy with castles and really cool kind of stuff, which I can show you as well if you're so inclined. But yeah, so there is that, which is part of it. Except that you often go, well, yeah, okay, all right, so we can build these tiles. We're going to be doing that in a little bit, but planning is often a problem. And they went, oh, that is not the problem. So they created this. This is all the tiles, as you can see, all the characters that they have. And you can change it from alien, you can go post-apocalyptic. These are the different settings they have, by the way, in this Kickstarter. They've got alien, city, post-apocalyptic, and space, citadel, and starship. And of course it brings up all of the appropriate tiles. Now you just click on the tile, he said, and drag it and drop it. So you can actually make your dungeon sitting quietly on your own. Just kind of going, okay, well, I'm going to put that there. Let's zoom out a bit. Let's see. I haven't spent too much time working with it, but it is pretty interactive, intuitive, and so you can lay out your entire. Let's do a corridor. I think they've got corridors here. Okay, great. Come here, and we'll build a corridor. You don't have to line up the puzzle pieces. I like lining up the puzzle pieces because it's a puzzle, right? So the important thing is that you can then go and build this out. You can build different layers. You can add in little bits of text. You can just draw whatever you want as well, and you can control all those kinds of things, and thankfully delete it. So they've got this app that you get as well as all of the tiles and things, and I think that's pretty fun too, because you can then play with it and go, okay, well, I want that tile, I want this tile, I want, you know, let's instead put that over there. So there's a door here and there's a door here. So there are some things that you're going to have to do yourself. So for example, this is a door and this is a door, and you go, okay, well, that's pretty awesome. So the players now know they can go from there, they can go through there, and that sort of thing. So there's lots of functionality that they're built in. In other words, and this is why I wanted to get so involved in this, is that they are not a giant commercial empire just trying to sell more stuff. They are gamers going, well, how do we take what we do and how do we share that? And that's what always gets me excited. So we're going to be looking at that in more depth a little later on. For now, let's go back to questions. Right, hang on a moment. So there's a question here from John Perry. How to step secrets from builds and lore where you ask the group to roll and then send it to each person with different levels of information. So it's up to the party to talk about it and reveal what they want. Okay. Oh, I see. All right. Yes. It's a follow-on. Right. Okay. So how to build in the secrets in World Anvil and share them with specific party members and that sort of thing. Yes, absolutely. So I think that's what's very exciting about World Anvil, is that there is this opportunity for you to say, okay, well, I want to have a secret, or I want certain secrets. You can even go to the point where you give your party in the game, you give them code. And if they log into World Anvil and they type in the code, that will give them access to certain things as well. So they discover an ancient codex and they get the code word for the monster. You can then, okay, right, let's give them the code word. They got the code word. They go to the book on the page and then they unlock the book. So there's a whole bunch of stuff we can do. Definitely. I will pass that on to them and we will get on to that. I did just record this morning this month's World Anvil videos, though, so it might not come out as soon as you would like it to. Okay, DJ Down Under, why am I screaming? Guy would be screaming reading this. Okay, not entirely sure what's going on there. Back to questions. We're going to do questions until the hour, and then we're going to go back to looking further at Future World, because I think it's very, very exciting. Where next question is Tropico Boy. What's your advice for running a one-person campaign? Tropico Boy, I have done a video on running one-on-one games. They're very intimate and they can be very, very exciting because they're a lot more like an action hero movie than they are an ensemble cast TV series. So there's definitely an opportunity there for you to have some fun. And I think the other important thing is that your NPCs become much more integral. Remember, your player is going to be interacting with them because there is no one else to interact with. So bear that in mind. Your NPCs need to be really fleshed out for a one-on-one game. But it can be a lot of fun. It really can be. White Tiger 225 says, oh no, sorry, I skipped one. Honorable 596 says, can you design a campaign that takes place entirely inside the same tavern? Perhaps use the idea as a creative writing exercise in a later episode. You can, and there's nothing wrong with that. It basically becomes a dungeon crawl when you design a one-room sort of thing. And I think the challenge is, how would you keep that unique and how would you keep it interesting? It's not a bad idea at all. I think it could be a lot of fun. So yes, definitely something for us to think about for future creative writing, which we will be doing in just over, good grief, 45 minutes. How the time flies. Colin Duff says, is that right? No, it's White Tiger 225. My tournament arc is starting. Well, thanks to your advice. Oh, okay, my pleasure. I'm glad that it helped inspire something. But for a game where high schoolers battle model kits against each other, any thoughts on what I could give them for prizes besides the obvious model kits and money? John Perry, thank you for that. What I would look at is the kits often come with extra accessories and that sort of thing. Or you could go and look at alternative stuff. So, I mean, Japan, if you were running something in Japan where you got all these kits and you say sort of model robots and stuff, you could walk into almost any store and pick up a little box of extra bits. I would hand those out, perhaps. That could certainly work. I would also allow them to explore character growth. So if they're piloting these giant robots, have the characters grow. Definitely something to have a look at there. Another question from John Perry. So how would you make it where the party has to be involved in the secrets and knowledge and make it more real where the person knows something that no one else does? John Perry, the biggest challenge that you're going to face is that the players are notoriously bad at sharing information. Notoriously bad. So there is definitely something to bear in mind there, is that the giving players secrets secretly, which is how one would really want to do it, oftentimes results in them not sharing that secret. And you as the GM end up sitting there going, oh, why won't you tell them what you know, you insufferable person? So think about how you can give the same clue or the same secret to other PCs if you notice that the one that has the clue is not sharing it. That's also something to bear in mind. So usually when I give a clue or a piece of information to one party member, I will actually give the same information, but from a different perspective. I will give the same information to somebody else as well. If two of the party members are not sharing that information, then you have done everything that you have needed to in terms of being a GM. Beyond doing anything else, that's now in their park. They should be running with it. They should be playing it. They should be taking as it is. And if they don't, that's their problem. That's their problem. So think about that. Dylan and Dragon says, how much should assassins cost to hire and how much help should they give the party so the party won't feel like the normal characters, instead of the heroes? It depends on what game you're playing. Assassins can be Crusade of Ashes. Thank you for that. Really do appreciate that. Bits. We love bits. It really does depend on the setting. It depends on what is the profile of the person that is going to be assassinated. It depends on the idea of the risk involved, how to make it feel like the players are not just average and that they're heroes. Well, I would turn them into the actual assassins. I would get the assassin to use them as the actual means of assassination, and the actual assassin is a dummy, a decoy, so that the player characters can actually do it themselves. That's something to look at. I would suggest having a think on those lines. All right, so now let's see. Yeah, you know, parties suffering. Well, not parties suffering. Parties not sharing with each other is a big thing, and I think that the important thing is after the session is to remind them of that fact. Now, if we go to Ghost of Saltmarsh, and I think I saw Dead Aussie Gamer hovering around somewhere, but anyway, in Ghost of Saltmarsh, the biggest challenge I had was that I was giving the party magic items, but they were either throwing them away, burying them, forgetting about them, or just not sharing. And as a result, my hands were tied. I couldn't do anything about it. And after the games, I was saying to them, you know, you've got lots of magical items, but you're not sharing them. So there's nothing I can do. Sometimes it's about being open and honest and saying, well, you've got secrets, you're not sharing it. So the only person who's suffering is the rest of your party. Think about that for a little bit. So yeah, sometimes there's definitely nothing wrong with just saying, hey. Stephanie Williams says, how to deal with lawful stupid and true neutral who become lawful stupid and I don't give a damn neutral. Oh dear, oh dear. Look, alignments are always a problem. Always a problem. So something to bear in mind. Again, I have done videos on lawful stupid and on the equally stupid, oh, I'm a rogue, so I'm just going to steal everything, which I think is silly. I don't think that works either. The videos, generally speaking, are aimed at people who do this, and are aimed at people who don't think out of the box or who don't understand. So when you get someone who starts to play a lawful stupid or an evil stupid character, I would quite quickly stop the game, because to me it is a game stopping offense, and say, right, let's define our alignments. And what you're doing currently is lawful stupid. It does not read to me as something that a character would do in reality, no matter how morally convicted you might be. So, is that the kind of game that you want to play? Because if it is, that's fine. And then what you do is you restrict, then you play to those alignments. Specifically, you play to those alignments. So all of a sudden, oh, you can't walk into the church. It's sacred ground. It's only for lawful good characters. So all of the rest of you have to stay outside. So if you want to play lawful stupid, go ahead. But we're now playing to those rules too. So, but avoid that by talking about it. Talking about it and saying, listen, this is not, doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Let's fix this. Let's talk about it now rather than get stuck with it later on. So don't do that. Don't do that. Brian Tenney, thank you for that. You're new to RPing, to role-playing. Should I make a character more like myself to ease into role-playing, or should I be more bold? Well, you know, Brian, I think you're going to end up making a character that way anyway, to be perfectly honest with you. John Perry, you don't need to, but that's very kind of you. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. So Brian, when you are creating characters, and because you're new to role-playing, generally speaking, unless you are an actor or you are someone who likes to improvise and like to embody or impersonate others, you're going to start expressing yourself anyway. In terms of creating a character, whether it's a modern day setting or sci-fi or fantasy, that can be a very interesting creative exercise. And we've actually done that on the channel under creative writing. We've done that before, where we look at what would you be, take your modern day life and translate it into a fantasy setting or a science fiction setting, that sort of thing. So we have done that before. I'm not sure that it would be necessarily an easier role-playing experience, to be honest with you, rather than trying to pretend to be something else. What I would suggest that you do, rather, is find a character from fiction, from a TV show, from a film, something along those lines, and then try and emulate that character. So if you choose, for example, Sigourney Weaver, Lieutenant Ripley from the Aliens films, in the first one she was fairly innocent, but she was still quite tough. She stood her ground. She didn't disagree. She didn't back down from domineering individuals. You know, that wasn't necessary. So the important thing, I think, is to find a character that you want to try and be like, and then try and be like that, so that you can experience what role playing really is all about. So bear that in mind. Bear that in mind. Okay, another thing from Mr. Perry. In another game, I have a player that's within a day or two of becoming a lich, and the party doesn't know that. How do I handle it when he becomes one, becomes one we're playing in a really messed up world? So, whenever you've got these kind of transitions about to happen, the challenge here is that, as you say, the party doesn't know it's about to happen. I would, in terms of your next 2 days of role playing, so it doesn't matter how many real hours it is, in the game I would start to give indications. Maybe it's a pool of blood underneath the character's backpack because they have a heart in there or something. Maybe it's a ring of evil that's slowly corrupting them. Let the party know about it, because otherwise when it happens, it's not going to be spectacular. It's not going to be mind-blowing. It's going to be a, okay, don't know how that happened. Didn't we detect the evil? Didn't we detect the undeadness beforehand? No? Okay. Oh, surprise. You know, so I would try and find ways in the next 2 days of game time to drop hints, to let them become aware of that. Have a bounty hunter ride up and say, I'm looking for the ghost of the bog. Apparently he's becoming a lich. You know, you can bring in NPCs, let them do all that kind of stuff. Just make it work in terms of letting people know that something is afoot. Because then when it happens, they go, oh, that's what that meant. Oh, yeah, no, okay. Rather than, oh, all right, well, that's what happened. Whatever. Bear that in mind. Next, Jorg William just has appeared off screen. Jorge William. How to make a boss fight be threatening without risking a TPK. If you don't risk a TPK, is it threatening? Yes, of course it is. The challenge is when you become fixed in your numbers. If you want your boss fight to be big and dramatic and powerful, that's fantastic. If you want your boss fight not to run the risk of a TPK, then make sure that your boss is malleable. When the boss is about to strike the killing blow, when the boss is about to win, there is nothing in the rulebooks that says that the boss has to strike. The boss is more than capable, because you control them, to stop and gloat over them. And to tell them that they are pathetic, useless worms, and that killing them would be too good for them, because that meant that the boss had actually fought them. But if they are left alive, they can limp home knowing that forever they have been defeated by the ultimate power, and that they could do nothing about it. Showing contempt is one option. The boss could simply, on the last strike, leave them, knock them out, and then have their minions drag them away into the dungeon where they're forgotten about because, well, you always have to lock the heroes in a prison that no one can see, but which has an ancient escape route which no one knows about except for the one old prisoner who's lived there all along and happens to have fashioned a key out of a piece of chicken bone. So the idea is that if you are going to get to the point where it's a TPK, there's no reason why the villain has to carry on playing. The villain can just stop and do all those kind of wonderful things. Matthew Dunnigan says, your prep video for Ghost of Saltmarsh was great. Well, thank you. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Do you follow the same steps for all your campaigns, or just major ones? I follow it for all my campaigns because I find it so much easier and simpler and quicker, I suppose, than anything else. So, for example, with the upcoming Descent into Avernus, it's being played by a lot of groups on the internet at the moment, and I've been watching them going, okay, that's an interesting take, that's an interesting take. Of course, the campaign that is in the Descent into Avernus book is phenomenal. It's absolutely fantastic, but there's no ways I could be able to play that on the stream in 12 episodes. I mean, it literally takes characters from level 1 to 13. That's years in my campaign. That's literally an entire year or more of playing. So I've got to look at it and I've got to think about it and I've got to rationalize it. You can also look forward, hopefully, to videos coming out where I do unpack that. I do talk about it and explain what I shall be doing, as I did with Ghost of Saltmarsh. It will be a lot of fun. Next question. How are we doing for time? 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. DJ Down Under 757 says, planning a magic item, a book of chains for horror that offers spells seemingly at random that anyone can then cast at the risk of madness. How should I use this? As I choose what and when. What and when. Okay, so first of all, if it's seemingly at random, it means it's not. It means that there's a pattern to it. And if that's the case, then I hope that you have a plan for what this book wants to achieve. So it allows characters to cast certain spells. It allows them to do things that it needs them to do in order for the book to succeed at whatever it is after. It could be that the book simply needs virginal souls that need to be sacrificed in front of it. So it will allow the party to use spells from it whenever they are fighting a virgin or whenever there's a potential of bloods being spilled. I would give the book an objective, and then I would allow the spells to be used only when they absolutely satisfy the objective. And if they don't use it. Don't use it. So that just doesn't work. Doesn't work. So that is exactly what I would allow or disallow for them to do. So bear that in mind. bear that in mind. All right. And then, how do I drop... this is from John Perry again. How do I drop the hints where it's not red flags? The party that I'm playing with is really sharp when it comes to stuff like that. Plus, it's an evil campaign with death and murder and stuff. Again, there is a subtlety that needs to be done here. And it's not always easy. It's not always easy. It is not always easy. Judging by your players, again, having a random individual ride past hunting down a specific thing, or have them get a report of something that's been stolen or is missing, or have a creature attack them pointing at the character that's turned into a lich and accusing them of being undead already. Even if they say, it's an undead, they're an undead, and the person goes, I'm not, look, I bleed. It's still seeding in the minds of the players that there was a warning, that there was something. You just need one player to think back and go, you mentioned, you did, and we didn't pick it up. That's what you need to try and find out. So it can be subtle, very, very subtle, or it can be overt that the player can deny, the character can deny it and say, I'm not this person, look. So that's something to bear in mind. That is something to bear in mind. Okay. It is the hour, so your questions, I will continue to answer them whilst we're doing something pretty fun. And I think this is pretty fun. So what I did with Future World, so we're going back to Future World now. What I did with Future World, and I'm going to bring up this picture to remind you. So there's Future World. The Kickstarter starts on the 27th, so in a couple hours for those of you that are in the US. More than 600 items. 600 items. You go, okay, well, this is what 600 items looks like. So in Japan, you get these wonderful plastic containers for like $1. This is what 600 items, this is what came in that box set. And it's not all of it, because I didn't buy enough of these. I needed another one of these because there's another pile over there. Each one of these is filled with tiles and figures. So this does cause a problem. It does. Organization of this stuff is always a problem. So I'm going to show you this one now, and I've now set up the new camera. So look, it doesn't shake. I can move around, and the camera doesn't shake because I bolted it to the ceiling. And it's still going to be it's a focus nightmare. Anyway, so organization is always a problem. Now these are the human figures that they have. So they've got different races, and we'll go through them. So let's see. That's so yeah, it's never going to focus. I'm not even going to try. All right. So there's a human figure. There's a female figure. There's a sort of oh come on, please cooperate, you swine. Yay! So we get to see some beautiful artwork. So these are all humans. Then you get these tokens. Now, they don't have a system. They just say, right, here's some tokens. And it's got, 6 little buttons on it. And you can do stuff with it. And that's the important thing, is you can do stuff with it. Because, here. So, in the kit, they give you these permanent markers. Oh, they're not permanent, they're dry erase. Dry erase. So you could use these as little markers to sort of keep track of hit points or something. And they just rub off, right, because it's dry erase. And they're double-sided, so you can use either side. So you get those. Then there are just dozens. No, dozens is the wrong word. It feels like there are hundreds of these little tokens. And they're generic, so it's not for a specific system. So you've got blinded. You've got... What's this one? Frightened. And on this side, because they're double-sided, you've got stable. Right? So just hundreds of these little tokens. Dazed. Dazed is a nice one. It's never going to focus. Never. Not in a million years. So there's all these kind of things that are going on. Now, these are pretty cool. But I always have a problem with organization. How do I organize? How do I classify human figurines? How do I classify? Let's put those over there. Let's come in here. Oops, get out of the way, microphone. How do I... Oh, too close, too close, too close. These are corridor pieces. We're going to be using these in a little bit. So I'm going to pull those out for now. They've got these really cool vehicles. And what I do like is the one side is nice vehicle. And the other side is blown up, destroyed vehicles. So you've kind of got these options. And they come in different sizes. So you get little individual pods, wrecked or not. And they've got crates. So it's just a jumble of crates for people to hide behind, or electro shields, I suppose you could do. And of course then just tons and tons. So these are different types of robots. And what I like is that they also different sizes, quite dramatic different sizes. You get really little ones and really big ones and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're going to talk about how I organize these things so that they're easier to find, because that's usually a big problem. Right, Xander the Green says, suggestions on how to price sky whale blubber for military airships and their photosynthetic wings for air enhancements. It's interesting. It's interesting. For those of you that don't know, sky whale blubber. Sky whales are a creature that I used in a campaign. They're giant whales that basically sail in the sky. Nothing new. It's not a new concept, flying whales. You know, I'm just putting this down. When it comes to pricing, when it comes to things like that, it's about abuse, isn't it? And so we discovered this, and I don't want to punt it too much, but the book, Complete Guide to Nautical Campaigns, that I'm writing, or that I've written, and is now in layout and all that kind of stuff, we started to realize that a ship can carry a huge amount of cargo, and that cargo is worth a fortune, way more than adventurers could possibly think. When you start looking at it, you go, risk your life in a dungeon for, say, 1,000 gold pieces, or get a ship on loan and make 1,000 gold pieces per metric ton of cargo that you transport with relatively little risk. So when it comes to things like blubber and all that kind of stuff, and even if you look at the Ghost of Saltmarsh book, where they have prices for certain things, their magic item cost is a fixed 15,000 gold pieces. So those wings, 15,000. Blubber, 15,000. If it's going to add something to the ship, it's going to enhance it. And that's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea to just keep it in that space. So, yeah, definitely something to think about. Something to think about is just to look at that. So, yeah. Okay, let's see. We got some bingly beep stuff coming through. Right. Could you possibly do a video? Wait, hang on. Ursolicius Marvin says, have you ever done an end-of-world campaign? I'd like to see your take on the story and the system. Well, the system is an interesting one. And I didn't set this up. The reason the system is an interesting one is because we just happen to have post-apocalyptic corridors right here in this future world setting that they have sent me to have a look at. I'm just busy looking at the pieces. Now, End of World is always interesting because the players don't necessarily know that it's coming, or if they do, they don't necessarily have a way of stopping it, which I also particularly like. So something definitely to bear in mind is what is going to happen afterwards, and what is the trigger event. And usually the trigger event should be your players. They should be your players. That, for me, is the important thing. By virtue of the fact that the player characters are the ones that are driving this whole story forward anyway. So they should be responsible. They should be involved in some way. So that is something to think about. Is how do they trigger the end of the world, or how do they stop it from happening? So when you look at end of world stuff, it's usually pretty grim. pretty grim, usually. So, I was doing that in the game The Chaos Stones was End of World, and the characters, instead of saving the world, the one character betrayed everybody and completely rewrote the world and with themselves as a demigod, and had erased all of the other gods. They just went, no, I'm in charge now, and this is it, and this is what I'm doing. Okay, so be it. Who are we to argue? But that's where the campaign ends. And then you can start another campaign, which is now post-apocalyptic or post-end of world kind of thing. But yes, I will definitely add it to the list in terms of doing a campaign where that definitely will happen. Another question from John Perry. Could you possibly do a video on that subject where you sit down and explain it in detail for new players and stupid sharp players on the GM side? Yeah, in terms of handling this whole situation, it is important for the players to realize that they're as important as everybody else in terms of trying to make the game fun. Now, before we go to the next question, I was talking about organizing. So what they've done is you get these little stands. Apparently these are not the final stands. The final stands will be round discs, which will look nicer. But as you can see, the figure just sort of slides into them quite easily. And they're very stable. I like them. And so we've got them sort of here and here and here. And they can move around and do all that kind of stuff. Now, it's important to note that these tiles are quite loose. I don't know if you can see that on the video. But they're not rigid. And there's a reason for it. And this is the reason that they said, is so that if you need to change a tile, you can lift it out without disrupting the rest of the board and drop in a new tile if you needed to, if there was a reason for it. If you wanted to update it, you could do that as well. So I really like that. That's point number one. Point number two was that I then said, okay, well, let's bring in this mecha droid. Why am I showing it to that camera? This mecha droid. Let's bring this mecha droid in, and have some fun with that. And then let's look at this plant-like monster. I like the color on it. And if you'll notice, why did it do that? You should stand. If you notice from the top-down view, it's not nearly as pretty as from the side view, but I don't have that many cameras. But from the top-down view, I've colored the board, the cardboard, to the appropriate color for the species. So what I did, why are you doing that? Oh, I put this in the wrong place. Let me do that, and that will solve that problem. So what I did, under normal circumstances, they come in as grey, right? And this is a monster. It's a giant beetle-like thing. It's not an android. So I classified them as green as human. Blue was alien, so alien humanoid. Red was monster, and black was android. So I just take the pen that they supplied, and then let's just do this here. I mean, I'm not going to show you the whole thing because it's ridiculous. If you can't color in on the top of a piece of board, you're in trouble. So all that this does is now, when I have them, because at the end of a session, you always just take everything and throw it in a space, right? So maybe you have lots of little plastic compartments. Maybe you have days to sit there, but you should know by now I don't, and I really don't have that much time. So by just quickly coloring it in, if I am running a game and my players have gone down an alleyway and I need a monster to appear and attack them, and I haven't sort of planned it, I can just open up the monster box or the area, look for the red lip and know that that is a monster of some kind, and then grab it and then use it. So there we are. Just very, very simple, but now it's very clearly differentiated from the rest, and then we put it on a base. So it's a little bit of organization, and I think it makes it quite clear. So blue, black, green. I mean, you can choose whatever colors you like. So there we are. Bear that in mind. Next question, whilst we continue this. Jordan Beard says, how to be a great GM. I watched your how to make travel interesting, but I'm still having trouble incorporating and making it interesting. Any ideas? Well, I'm not entirely sure what I could add that I didn't mention in the video already, other than the fact that, does the travel need to be interesting? Do you want it to actually have something, or can it be just a montage? You move from point A to point B and then describe the flowing mountains, the river in a minute, and then have the players arrive at the next destination. It doesn't always have to be dramatic combat. You don't always have to have something. So definitely an opportunity to decide if you want something, and once you've decided on that, then add it in. So here I think is a good example. Let's say that these are our players and that this tile represents 1,000 kilometers. As they're journeying through that 1,000 kilometers, the players might be talking to one another about their arrival at the city, etc., etc. But you decide, you know what, I think they need an encounter. And again, this is where I kind of like these pieces that they can store flat, is that I will then go, okay, they're moving from point A to point B. They're in no rush. They're enjoying stuff. They're having fun. I haven't given them an encounter for a while. I haven't given them an experience points for a while, or I haven't given them some magical items. So let's do that. Let's do that. But now, how do I make it interesting? So in this case, this is a science fiction base. And I know I've got 4 different classifications. I've got aliens, I've got humans, I've got robots, and then I've got monsters. So what if this particular encounter, and then I can just randomly draw some pieces out of the box. This is often what I use it for, is I will draw some random pieces out of the box, and I'll go, okay, I've got an alien, which looks like a sort of serpent-like thing. Okay. I have an alien. I have this mecha droid. I have this giant plant. And then I'm going to show you the 2 biggest figures. Here is one of the small ones. A cute little robot. I like it. And then we're going to add in a giant blood-sucking worm, which is colossal in comparison to a human. I like it. So how then does this scenario play out? It could be that they come across a wounded figure. And the wounded figure is being protected by its ancient robot. The ancient robot is protecting it. And they hear screaming coming from just down the pathway. The robot will not engage them if they don't have weapons drawn. If they do have weapons drawn, then the robot will issue a come no further, danger, 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 however you want to do it. They can then interrogate this poor dying alien, try and save them. If they do, the alien can say, "You must rescue my droid. Without it, all of humanity's lost." And then they can come in and they can engage with this giant creature that is trying to eat this poor little droid that's running around down here. If I lie them flat, you'll see the actual artwork a lot better than anything else. So yes, I would then do something like that. They defeat the giant creature and then they return to the castle, or they continue on their journey. The important thing is that once they get to where they're going, let the rest of the world celebrate it. That's something that we don't do. Let the NPCs go, "I saw you defeat that giant worm-like thing, and I have to say I'm impressed. Have a beer on me." You know, let them celebrate that. Let them understand that. Let the player characters get a reward for doing some cool stuff. So sometimes just having these around can be really useful, especially if you're sort of just grabbing them and you're thinking whilst the players are talking to each other. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all, I don't think. Next question. Remember, please write question in front of your question. Stephanie Williams got it right, and so her question is, what about a desert game where Create Water actually steals water from other people, or oasis or storage tanks? It's an interesting premise. However, one must always balance it out with the idea that if they are, what are the consequences and how can it be tracked? How can it be tracked? If your players get to the point where they go, if I create water, I'm going to cause an oasis to literally run out of water and dehydrate and die, so I'm going to sacrifice myself. You got to look at that and say, oh, more or less, I'm not sure. Let me think about this. So I would look at it that way. I would look at, okay, how do the players overcome that problem? If they're good aligned, they're not going to want to do that. They're not going to want to steal something from someone else. They're going to want to find a solution, something along those lines. And I would be inclined to give it to them. Let them figure out, actually we can do this, or we can do that, yeah, I think it's always fun, and I think a desert game and exposure game is always interesting. My big challenge coming up is I've got the Descent into Avernus, where Avernus itself, the first layer of the infernal hells, is difficult. The terrain is basically like a giant desert on fire with soul-eating stuff. It's really, really, really exciting. But at the same time, as a player, I'm looking at it going, this is going to be so exhausting to go through. It's not going to be fun. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be painful. So bear that in mind. You don't want that to happen. Scorchclaw, where do you go turn to find art to inspire locations within your world? Whether it's as big as an entire city or simply just a map for an encounter. I don't have a specific space to go to. I am part of a Facebook group called Dungeons and Dragons Fantasy Art, where people post up their artwork all the time. On our Discord server, discord.gg, let me put it into chat, so you guys can join that, discord.gg/greatgm. Come and join us there. There's a section there for artwork as well. Otherwise, yeah, just sort of wandering around on the internet, having a look. So I don't have a specific go-to space necessarily, but if anyone does, please share the links, on Discord or even here. I will watch on YouTube to allow those links to go through. If you have a website that you like to go to, DeviantArt, of course, is a standard sort of spot to have a look at and check out. Next question, Jordan Beard. Hey guy. Oh, okay. Hello, Jordan. You didn't write question in front of that. I don't know if there's an actual question in there. Okay. Vicios says your rant on evil PCs was great. Thank you. I just had enough about evil PCs, but how would another player handle an evil PC who constantly bullies other players and the rest of the party, and the DM does nothing? First time live. Well, glad you could join us live. I would talk to the other players first and see if they feel that they're being bullied, because if they do feel that, it must be addressed. It's unfair to expect or to allow one player to have that kind of influence on the table. If that's the case, I would go to the GM, see what the GM says. If the GM says no, they're not bullying, it's just you guys, then I would seriously have a look at finding a different group. I know it sounds harsh, but sometimes these are the best ways of doing these things. If, on the other hand, you go to everybody else and they go, oh, I don't think they're bullying. I don't think they're bullying at all. Then you need to look at it and go, well, maybe you're being too sensitive. Or maybe you're being overly critical, perhaps. Sometimes we are the ones that are at fault. It's difficult to accept from time to time, but that's why we ask our fellow players and our GM. And finally, if the GM goes, yeah, but I don't have a problem with that, just stand up for yourself, well, then maybe it's time for your character to express that and to snap back at the bully and say, I have had enough of your bullying. You will stop. Or, quite frankly, I don't want to adventure with you anymore. Express it through your character. See what they say. Confront them. That could be an interesting turn, and it could build towards a very interesting character development, where the player goes, the player character doesn't realize or didn't realize that they were the ones that were causing this grief, and as a result, you've got character interaction, you've got character growth, and that is stuff that we absolutely love and adore on this channel. So something to think about. Next question. How do you handle player jealous when one player does something like becoming a lich? Okay, how do you handle player jealousy? Sorry, I'm just trying to find the tab. Player jealousy is difficult. And I think that if you have someone who is prone to that kind of pettiness where they are jealous, there's two things. One, are you always favoring the character who is causing the jealousy? So maybe you are quite literally favoring that so that the jealousy is warranted, or is it just the player who just wants what everybody else has? And again, if that's the case, sometimes it's time to say goodbye and to bring in somebody else who will appreciate the game and not want to have everything that everybody else has. I think that's important. Okay, we are 5 minutes away from the creative writing challenge, and I'm just very quietly and slowly putting together something here as we are talking. I'm just busy going through the stacks of plates that we have here, and I think I have something. All right. So, last question for now before we go to creative writing, which is interactive and which I would hope that you will participate in as well. Last question. Shiro, the villain in the glasses, says, I'm thinking of running a one-shot Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition in the plane of air. How would you suggest doing that? I have some ideas, mostly floating islands and airships. Yes, I think that the plane of air, the risk of falling is that you die of starvation. Bear that in mind. You're not going to hit anything. You're going to literally die of starvation. So I think that is always something that's amusing to think about. And to definitely add to your story repertoire, I suppose you would call it. But I would also look at, all right, so there are these floating islands and there are these floating creatures. What does floating islands imply? Are they in a fixed location? Do they drift? Are there wind currents that almost act like wave currents? What can you add to it so that the players feel like they are in a real space? The NPCs. What do you mean you don't have a set of wings? Why haven't you been to the artificer? He'll fix wings on for you, and then you'll be able to flap around. Otherwise, how the hell do you plan on getting around? You know, so commentary like that, you go, well, yes, actually, we probably do need wings, so that we don't all die, or fall off a cliff and plunge to our death, type of things, and that's important to bear in mind. Is yes, why don't you have wings? Why? So. Again, it's about going back to the setting and saying, okay, well, what can we do? How can we figure this out? How can we make it real? So there's a video coming out. I've just recorded it, as a matter of fact, this morning. And in that video, I talk about living the space. So go and live in that space. Go and spend some time in that space and figure out, how do people live there? What do they do? What do they need when they need supplies? Where does their food come from? What things are in place that will allow something to happen, for example? I think that's important to unpack and to internalize and make real. Okay, so now our writing challenge. Our writing challenge is this. I'm going to put this in here. Now pretend that that's a roof. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about in this future world, which I absolutely adore, and these tiles are popping out so nicely. Let's just align that so that people don't die. Okay. All right. So this is hold your questions for now. We will do creative writing, and then we will come back to your questions. So don't worry, we will come back. We've still got half an hour. The way that creative writing works is that I am going to give you a creative a prompt, and you then respond to that prompt in the chat. So you actually write in YouTube or in YouTube or in Twitch, brain failing because I'm trying to multitask. You write your answer in there, and then we talk about it. There's no judging, there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. We just unpack and go, okay, well, this was your answer, that was cool. This was your answer, that was cool. Let's go from there. You know, so it's a straightforward little piece of exercise. Today, in honor of Future World, I'm going to rearrange these thusly. I think makes more sense. And that wouldn't be that way. That would be this way. Okay. What I have quickly put together here is we have a central open space, and then we've got an impossible apartment over there. So that doesn't make sense. This has to rotate. Okay. We then have an apartment here. We have entrance into what looks to be a medical facility, but it also has a secret corridor which is highly monitored for these different cells, perhaps. And then over here, we have another private space. What I like about these tiles is that these tiles can be drawn on. So I can quite literally say door over there, and I don't have to say door if I don't want to. And then I can put it here and say door, and then this already looks like a door, so we've got door. Now it's easier for me to see because I can look around and sort of get the shine and stuff. So your creative writing exercise is to put this together. What does this all mean? So this door here, I'm going to mark it with red because it's locked. And I want you to tell me, what does this mean? What is the situation? What is the scenario? We've got our heroes. They arrive here. You have put this together. You have just slapped this down. Our heroes have arrived here. I want you to give me your creative solution as to what this space is. So you've got an apartment with a double bed. It looks to be quite a nice apartment in a sense, very Japanese, I would say. There's another door here. And it looks like there's a door here. Okay. And then this space here doesn't make sense to me. So I'm actually gonna draw a line there. Okay, so that's solid. I'm gonna put a door in here. I'm going to make it secret. Okay. So there we go. All right. So what is this space? Why does this space exist? What is happening here? When the PCs walk in through here, what are they seeing? Is this... does this have a big neon sign that says... you won't see that. Doctors, perhaps. And it just rubs off, which I really like. You tell me. So creative writing. What is this space? And does this have anything to do with it? So you jot down your answers there. And whilst you're doing that, I'm going to look at some more questions. Slavic Schautauguan. I'm not sure. How would you handle a one-shot in a system which the players may not be familiar with? Would you simplify or truncate mechanics to get more of the story in? Yes, I would. If it's new players and it's a new system, get the basic mechanics and then move forward. Get the basic mechanics and then move forward, without a doubt. If you're new to the show, please put the word question in front of your question so that I can see it straight away. One's Darkness says, what do you think of World of Darkness? I love World of Darkness. I haven't played it as much as I possibly could. I really want to. I really want to play more World of Darkness. I love the vampire stuff. Of course, I'm partnered now with Dead House Sonata, which is a PC game, an action RPG, which is similar, but it isn't World of Darkness, and I really want to get back into World of Darkness. We've got our first creative answer coming through, which I like. White Tiger 225 says, Dr. Amalus does great work for those who have little to no income. Living on premises, he is available 24/7. Lately, though, patients who have visited have not left the building, according to surveillance outside. Little does anyone know, organ harvesting is why Amalus's work comes so cheap. It's a great classic setup. Really cool. So our players arrive. What's happening in this space here? Is that where Dr. Amalus lives? Now, I think he's in here. I think he's in here because I quite like this one. So when he arrives here, I need a human couple. So I'm going to grab... Now, if they were all labeled green, it would be a lot faster for me to do this. All right, so I need a human couple. So there we go. We have a human couple who live here, and they're going to complain. So, obviously, I put them on stands, but I don't know who's free stands at the moment. So, if the PCs knock on the door, it gets answered. No, it's been unusually quiet. It's been unusually quiet, they say, for example. When they get in here, of course, there's going to be a defensive robot sitting at the back down there, and there'll be a little robot that greets them and asks them if they're injured, etc, etc, etc. And of course then we can put in some injured individuals here who desperately want to escape, and Dr. Amalus himself. So yes, perfectly wonderful scenario. What else can we do with this particular scenario? Give me your creative thoughts. This is the Future World Creator System that we are looking at the moment. The Future World Creator System. Kickstarter launches in a couple hours. Beautiful pieces. Very nice quality board. Next, Honorable 596 says, can you try to come up with lore and story of a tribe of humans who are slowly mutating into spider-human hybrids? I already have the lore of my own, but I want to hear what you could come up with. The lore of a bunch of tribe of humans who are slowly mutating into spider-human hybrids. I would have it as a curse. You've got the Greek Arachne and Ariadne, who there was that whole curse. She got turned into a spider by Aphrodite because someone said she was more beautiful than Aphrodite. Vindictive woman. So yes, I would have them believe that it's a curse of the gods. What's actually happening is, I would again say, the Drow are attempting to take over a section of territory, and so they're poisoning everybody, and that's where we're getting to. The Grumpy Game Developer says, or the Grumpy Game Dev, I should say, the Warden's apartment immediately adjoined the Hellgates, whereas the doctors connected directly to the medical ward. The sacrifices needed to be kept healthy for the monthly sacrifice. As the moon reaches fullness, the warden accompanied one prisoner to the Hellgates, and the bottom dropped out as the victim screams in terror. A flash of heat, and they are never seen again. But the world's insatiable demon is held at bay once again. Yes, that was it's a fun story. I know where it comes from, but that's okay because it's a really cool idea. It's a really cool idea. We could even put that. We could put that summoning circle here. Or the Hellgate, whatever. That's the Star of David, so that's wrong. It's meant to be a pentagram. Anyway, you get the idea. We could certainly put that in there. I think that could be a lot of fun. Kirk Wagner says, high-end detox center. Some people who have come in haven't left. People running it are taking the opportunity to remove influential persons whom they think are bad influences. I like that one because our heroes are going to see something going on. They're going to see these poor celebrities that have been hijacked and that are lying in the beds and that sort of thing, and they're going to have a moral dilemma. These are drug dealers. These are scumbags. We should be taking them out. We should be destroying them, not saving them. So says the Doctor. It's a lovely moral dilemma, and I really like it. I really, 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 really like it. Jaden Harold says, I personally wouldn't have connected the bedroom to the courtyard thing where the PCs are. Okay. The bedroom to the courtyard. All right, so your wish is my command. Oops, and I'm busy sliding these all over the place. These are actually second level buildings, so you can stack them. That's why they don't have interlocking pieces. All right, so you wouldn't have connected it, so then let's rotate it this way, I guess. So we do something like that. Maybe? Is that what you were thinking? In which case our door could still actually connect here. I know you said you didn't want to connect it, but we could connect it if we wanted to. So we could do that. That's actually a better entrance, just from a design perspective. So you walk down the little corridor. Waste of space, but there you go. We stood before the quarantined lab waiting for Dr. Davis to wake, nervous as to what he may have discovered, says Lance Pickett. I like it. Sturzum the Cyan Demon says, will the multi-platform comment display come back? Will the multi-platform comment display come back? I don't understand, Sturzum. What does that mean? Will the multi-platform comment display come back? Oh, I see. Oh, I see. Oh, I see. I see. I see. You mean that. Multi-display comment, so you can see both the Twitch feed and of course the YouTube feed. Right, so there we are. Starting to feel Shadowrun? Yes. Garrett Strickland says, this is a top secret research facility where some kind of enemy government organization does testing on perhaps some kind of futuristic weaponry, or maybe something darker like human testing on some. I like it. Some kind of gene splicing with aliens. Ooh, aliens are always, always, always fun. Xander the Green says, suggestions on how valuable price-wise should I make the Skywhale blubber for? I've answered that one already, Xander. I would say somewhere around 15,000 gold pieces. And what does it do? Does it allow you, if you rub something with whale blubber, to fly? That would be something that I would look at. Always, always make it very expensive. So there is something to bear in mind. Andrew Bustler says, what is your favorite dish to eat in Japan? I think, I'm just busy running through all the various options. I'm a huge fan of katsudon, which is very simple, sort of crumbed chicken and onions on a noodle base, or a rice base actually. Yesterday we had curry udon noodles, which was very nice. So yeah, I have lots of dishes that I really enjoy. I don't know if I have a favorite necessarily. But yeah, tonkatsu also is nice. That's a crumb pork. So it kind of depends what mood one's in, really. We've got just a few minutes left. The Imperial dropship has been used to house officers, not just those of the Imperial invaders, but your own captured allies. You'll need to free them and get what information you can and get out, says Slavic Chataugquin, I think. Yes, it's a cybernetics facility that contains a secret. The owners own slaves they test their newly developed parts on. The cells are where they are detained. The apartments are where the doctors live. Great, great idea. I like that. I like that. Matthew Dunnigan says, pre-written adventure encounters To make them more challenging, do you prefer adding more monsters, traps, or enhancing the power of the existing monsters and traps? Oh, there was a video that was released a couple of weeks ago, Matthew, called The Ultimate Game Master's Secret. And in it, you look at the 3 Ps: pain, pressure, and problem. That's what you use to make encounters more dangerous, in my opinion. Increase the amount of damage that they do. Don't increase the number of hit points they have. Increase the amount of damage that they do by doubling it. You can also increase the pressure. So if we go back to our scenario here where we've got our heroes, if they've become split up, which often happens, and we've got 2 of them exploring down here, and we've got 2 of them, wandering into this corridor where they're going to encounter this giant robot type of scenario. What makes this more dangerous? Well, if they're a good fighter, and if these 2 are good fighters, and it looks like this one is, they've got a laser sword, 2 laser swords actually, and she's got some kind of holographic thing going on with her hand. If this monster is not scary enough on its own, if I suddenly, and I don't just suddenly double the damage, that's not what I'm saying. So let's say the first round of combat happens, they deal some damage to the creature, it fires back, and it does nothing. They don't care about it. Then what you can do is you can say the creature realizes it's ineffective, and a 3rd arm is now ejecting out of a central socket in the middle of it, and the arm spins up with electric blue energy, and double the amount of damage is now dealt to these characters in the next attack. Suddenly it's more terrifying. It could also be that the creature, once they've shot it once, this door now suddenly slides behind them, and gas starts flooding the chamber because the droid is not going to be affected by the gas. And so they can make a medicine check and discover that in 10 minutes time, or 5 minutes time, or 5 rounds time, they will be knocked unconscious if they can't escape. So now, even though the creature is doing a little amount of damage, they're still terrified. Meanwhile, over here, let's move him into the bedroom here. Meanwhile, in the social encounter, where we've got our 2 characters talking to this individual in his bedroom. So there we are, they're in his bedroom, and they are trying to interrogate him. Meanwhile, how do we change the pain? Well, he now starts talking about the slaughter of all of the street children. So the emotional pain starts to increase. But what kind of pressure do we put on it? Well, that's him saying, and everyone that's ever gone in has died. And I know how it happens. There's this gas which slowly dissolves your lungs, and you can't even smell it to begin with. It's just released. It's done automatically when the system detects an intruder. Now these people go, oh my goodness, our characters are down here. So we put lots of pressure on them. Or the problem could simply be that they have now triggered alarms, and the police are going to start arriving, and they're not there legally, and they have no evidence of what's going on in these rooms just yet. So they need to get into the room, get away from this little midget here that's not doing a lot of damage, but they need to get into the room, and then they get out of the room, and they need to do this before that happens, and all those kinds of things. So that's how you really ramp up existing stuff already. Okay. So let's go ride pandas. Yay! No, not actually. No, I wouldn't want to ride a panda. Says, if I read the article correctly, it seems like Wizards of the Coast is going to fully release the Artificer class as a 100% supported new class. Okay, I haven't read the article. I didn't know that. I know it's been around for a while, but as an unofficial class. This is the first time they did this since 5th edition came out. What's your opinion on this? Also, what do you think of the Mystic class? I thought the Mystic class that was played by Jorik, the character in my Adventures of the Windswift game, I thought Jorik was a lot of fun to play, but I also felt that the player did the class a lot more justice than the class warranted. The class seemed like it could be a little bit overpowered, in my opinion. With regards to Wizards adding in a new official class, I must admit, I'm very old school when it comes to those kinds of things. Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition, elves and dwarves were a class. That was just silly. 3rd edition, to me, had the right balance. You had enough opportunities to create fantastic characters, where if you wanted an artificer, you could have them. I think adding the class is not necessarily as smart as adding skills and things that would allow that class to exist, using an existing one. But again, does it really matter? Is it going to be game breaking for me? No, it isn't. If the players can now create these little devices, little clockwork things and the like, and send them scurrying forward, do I really, does it bother me much? No, it doesn't. It just means I can add it to the campaign as a new class and create monsters that are appropriate to that. So I kind of like the idea of adding stuff in. It's always interesting to add in more. See Andrew's saying tonkatsu in big capital letters. There's a lovely little family-run restaurant. It's so typical Japanese. It's on this little road, and you wouldn't really notice it if you didn't know what you were looking for. And they only open when they're ready to open. So sometimes there's people sitting outside waiting for the door to open, and then they open up, and they can sit 6 people. That's it. You sit in a line, and there's enough space to get in the front door, squeeze into your seat, and sit at the counter, and then they cook right there. That's just how they do it. That's a husband and wife and son who run this whole thing, and the food is just amazing. And again, they serve it until they're tired of serving it, and then no new customers. You go now. Goodbye. Thank you very much. His other son is currently studying in the US, and so he's trying to learn English to improve his ability to speak to his son, who predominantly speaks English and not so much Japanese. So it's an interesting thing. It really is interesting. Billy Bob Jones, lots of numbers thereafter, says, is this too many twists? Players fight Big Bad Endgame, who has a PC's wife. Sure. PCs rescue the wife. When the PC and the wife unite, she stabs the PC, revealing herself to be a spy. If you haven't set this up, it is already too much. After some fighting, and Big Bad is almost dead, the wife kills Big Bad and reveals herself to be a necromancer I've seeded, and kills the party, leading to afterlife adventures. Why does she kill the party? If she kills the party leading to afterlife adventures, having the party nearly kill the Big Bad, and then she betrays the party, and then she betrays the Big Bad, and then she kills the whole party. Why? Why would she reveal herself to the party? Why not let her be reunited, and then let her convince her husband, you must go back and slay that beast, and when you do, you have to stick this crystal into his forehead, and it will suck his soul into the crystal, and then we can control the being. Reveal it that way. Don't have her attack the party. Don't have her stabbing the PC. Why? Be more subtle about it. You said you've seeded it, which is great. But 2 things. 1, don't rely on her killing the party. Rely on the party killing her, because if the party can't kill her, why did they just fight the Big Bad? Why didn't she just kill the Big Bad on her own? What was the point? If she wanted the Big Bad to soften up the party, well, that's a different story. I wouldn't have her be rescued and then reveal that she's the monster. I'd have her rescued, and then I would have them go back after the Big Bad. So it's maybe just about realigning and thinking that perhaps it needs to be less obvious. Perhaps her line needs to be more direct in terms of her thinking. But yes, I would say just tweak it a little bit so that the party could see it coming and kill her before they get there. And of course that means, how are you going to get them into the afterlife, into that next adventure that you want them to go into? And it could be that the structure that they're in is keyed into the Big Bad's energy, so when it dies, the structure falls down and kills everybody. You could certainly do that. I see there's still some creative writing coming through from White Tiger. Oh no, wait, hang on a moment. There was one before that as well, which I missed. Upper left BR is a film set. Upper left. Oh, wait, let's go back there. So upper left is the film set. Or is it this one? Okay, let's keep working through this. The rest is a facility that produces a single hypnotically beautiful couple who are now famous. But their creation is not stable, requiring a morbid production line. That is fun. This is our superstar. She keeps dying, so we have to make more. I like that. I like that. Slavic Chow Tao Goan. Don't worry about apologizing. It's my uneducation, my uneducated brain that causes that to happen. How are we doing for time? 7 minutes left. 7 minutes left. Matthew Elkin says, how do you plan ahead for your player character stories, and how much of that do you discuss with the players? Is it better to surprise them or ask them where they want to go? Listen to where they want to go. Listen to the idea. Listen to what they're talking about around the table, and you'll find out where they want to go. In terms of planning the character stories, don't let the players do that. What you can do is when they say, oh, you know, I want to really explore my character's backstory. My character's backstory. Then have a look at their character backstory so that you kind of have an idea of where they're going. But I would still treat it as improvised adventure where you then go and explore their backstory. So definitely keep it loose. Don't try and overplan it, because sometimes they might not want to explore it and you don't want to force it. Wolvie Zandalari says, do you think they'll ever add more feats, or perhaps errata the old ones, to make some of them more useful? We've already seen things like Ghost of Saltmarsh, where the characters are now pirates, or at least nautical sailors and the like. And I know certainly from my own experience last year when I was working with Simon to try and write a naval book, we were looking at adding in new skills and new feats, and then maybe just reskinning old ones and the like. And the decision at that stage, when that book was a thing, was not to add in stuff. So I don't think they will, personally. I don't think they will. I know in the new book that I wrote, which was based on Saltmarsh, I wanted to add in stuff, but we found a better workaround. So instead of adding in new feats and things, we realized, oh, wait a minute, we can use orders as an alternative. So it gave us a new space. So instead of maybe adding an artificer with new feats, it could very well be, well, here's an artificer's house, or here's an artificer's backpack, and that allows you to do certain things which might feel like feats or it might feel like new skills, but which in actual fact still utilize the existing framework. I think that's always a risk, though, that they're going to run in terms of D&D, or in any role-playing system for that matter, is that you create a set of rules and then they evolve, and well, they don't evolve. You create a set of rules and then you're creating more stuff to fit on top of that, and you get to a point where you run out. So my book, Nautical Campaigns, it says right at the front, I'm not restricted as WotC is to rewrite the rules. So I rewrote a lot of their rules in terms of chase sequences and turn order and that sort of thing, to make it work better within the role-playing space, within the 5th edition space, whereas they can't do that. So yes, they're constrained. So I don't think they will. I don't think 6th edition is coming out anytime soon. It doesn't need to at the moment, but when it does, maybe then they'll add in and change stuff. So there we go. Right, Frank Robbins Jr. Wow, I haven't seen your name in a long time, Frank. Family health issues. Well, I hope you are doing well, my friend. I hope you are doing well, and that those issues are being resolved or have a positive outcome in one shape or form. It has been a long time. Frank was one of our very first supporters of the YouTube channel, and yes, we have definitely been growing. With 3 minutes left, let's do one more question, maybe two, and then we'll go from there. Mark Anthony Smith says, is Future World just tiles, or will it be something like an updated Starfinder system and setting? Do you know anything like that? Well, it's curious that you asked that question. So it is tiles. It is character art. Let me show you this one. I like this one. A giant mecha dragon thing. I mean, it's huge. You can't see it damn these things. It does look much better in real life, but they are massive. I mean, there is that creature. I'll light down for you. There is that creature, and there is a human. So it is tiles. It's interlocking tiles. Like I said, it is lots and lots and lots of tiles in 4 different flavors: starship, post-apocalyptic, city, and alien. And so I wrote to these guys yesterday. I wrote to them and I said, listen, I love Future World, but give me the lore. Talk to me about this mecha thing. And there's this sort of Venus flytrappy type of plant, but what is this slug thing? What is that? And they said, well, that doesn't exist. That's not a thing. So I said, okay, well, it should be a damn thing. So let's work together. So tentatively, and watch the channel for updates. But I will be working with them where it'll be a stretch goal for the Kickstarter, which launches in a couple hours, 27th of August. It launches. Where it'll be a stretch goal, and I will write a series of adventures that make use of the tiles and the creatures that come with it, for you guys to then use, and that will include some lore. It'll include some settings, so it's going to be a lot of fun, one way or another. And I'll probably do it anyway, even if they decide not to do it. I don't see the Kickstarter not being funded. They've done this before for fantasy, where they were funded 1,000% over what they actually asked for. So yes, there's lots and lots and lots of opportunities. They specifically didn't want to give it a setting. They wanted players to be able to use it for anything. Starfinder obviously comes to mind. D20 Modern Future comes to mind. You've got, well, you could use Mutants and Masterminds could make use of this kind of stuff. So you really could use these for all kinds of things. And of course, yeah, I just love the back. I mean, they look quite dark in the video, but each one's double-sided. Some of them linked together. These are roof tiles, by the way. They sit on top. So you'd have your second floor. So you can see the ground floor, and then you'd have the second floor above it. Or the roof. This is a helicopter landing pad, which is pretty cool, I think. Anyway. Right. So yes, we are officially out of time for today. So many cool questions coming through. Lots of things happening. Poor old Dead Aussie Gamer's got problems. Wolvie Zandalari, you've got the PDF already. It is on pre-order if you want it. www.greatgamemaster.com to help raise money for the artwork. I have met with an artist here in Japan. He is not from Japan, he is from Europe, but he lives in Japan. He's a very talented artist. He will be doing most of the ship illustrations within it. I've met with a layout consultant from the UK. He's been working on that. So lots of cool stuff in terms of that book coming through. If you want ships and you want 5th edition, then this will work for you. Anyway. Okay, now, to all of you that have been part of the stream, thank you so much. I really appreciate your company today. It has flown by. I can only say that I hope that you will support Future World. Do this. Look at all those lights. You will support Future World Creator simply because I think it's a great product. If you want sci-fi tiles, if you want fantasy tiles, you can grab them. As well, they've made those. They did that last time. That was their first Kickstarter. So yes, there we are. All right, until we meet again, which will be next week Monday, same time, same place, I want to wish you and yours the very happiest of gaming.